From the Cactus, KCTS-FM Phoenix, I'm Jamison Greenwood with Greenwood & Company. Well, I hope everybody's had a happy Valentine's Day yesterday. Hope you had a chance to spend some time with your special someone, or maybe multiple people that you love, spending time, of course, with your parents and your children. Maybe you're just friends of yours. You know, Valentine's Day doesn't have to be about romance. It can just be about platonic love. That's really important. I've heard the Greeks, actually had 4 different words for love, apparently. If you watch the overly sarcastic productions, there's one episode where Red talks about that. And if you want to celebrate love, you can also celebrate places that you love. One of the places I love, of course, is my home state of Arizona. You may not know this, but February 14th, Valentine's Day, was actually the day that we became a state back in 1912. So until I find romance, I think I'm going to keep on celebrating Arizona Statehood Day, but I'll probably keep celebrating Arizona Statehood Day the rest of my life. Even if I move out of Arizona, Arizona will never leave me. But most of my attempts at Valentine's Day and getting romance on Valentine's Day have been utter failures. But I did not end up as badly as Colton did this one particular time, when we thought maybe, just maybe, we would take a chance on the 2 girls that each of us liked. With Valentine's in the air, Brubeck's coffee shop was decorated with hearts in red, pink, and lavender, along with a banner of Arizona state flags around the counter to celebrate Arizona Statehood Day, as February 14th was also the day Arizona became a state. Colton and I met at Brubeck's so we could plan our Valentine's Day initiatives. Annabelle was giving a huge concert at the Robbins Music Hall with the Mateo Suarez Jazz Band, and Heather would be in the audience. From the time he met Heather, Colton was writing poems about her, and figured a Valentine's concert would be the best time to present some of these poems along with a bouquet of white carnations and some chocolates. I would join to serve as his wingman, and, I hoped, to give a rose, a box of chocolates, and perhaps a poem to Annabelle. So over the next few days, we worked on our poems and critiqued each other's until Valentine's came. I met Colton at Brubeck's the afternoon before the concert. He wore a black suit, white shirt, and red diamond tie, and got each of us a cup of coffee. Then we took a seat in the conversation pit near the entrance, Colton sitting across from me on the couch while I sat in the armchair. We went very carefully over the plan for this evening, which he'd laid out on his yellow half-size legal paper, evidence which he planned to destroy before we left Brubeck's that night. We were only trying to help him get a girl, but Colton was already treating this like we were agents with the CIA, out to defuse a foreign enemy's nuclear missile. We go to Giggot's for flowers and chocolate, he said, drive to the theater, and watch the concert. Heather and Annabelle are sure to meet up after that, so we'll greet them together. You'll start a conversation with Annabelle, and I'll take the flowers and chocolate and confess my feelings to Heather. Sound good? Yes, I replied. Let's roll, dude. He then tore up the paper, on which I realized only 3 words were written. Flowers, chocolate, theater. We then got into Colton's Kia Rio and drove to Giggot's supermarket, where he bought a bouquet of white carnations and a heart-shaped box of Hershey's to go with the brown leather journal where he'd copied his poems for Heather. For Annabelle, I bought a red rose, a Reese's, and an envelope that was a nice burgundy color to stuff my poem in. Then we drove together to Robbins Music Hall. Beside the fellow music and theater students who go to support these budding musicians, the only people there were retirees. Young people studying jazz gives me hope, but I suspect a limited audience among those their own age. The house manager, Heather and Annabelle's friend Brianna, said we would not be allowed to take our flowers and chocolate into the theater, so we left them with her at the ticket counter. When the house opened, Colton and I took our seats in the 7th or 8th row from the front. The lights soon dimmed, and the curtains rose to reveal Annabelle, Mateo Suarez, and the rest of the jazz band. Annabelle began with a solo on When I Fall in Love, and the sounds of her saxophone combined with her gorgeous green eyes got to me, and I couldn't wait to tell her how I felt. This continued through other beautiful solos on Begin the Begin and A Nightingale Sang in Berkeley Square. I fantasized, of course, about the kisses I hoped to share with Annabelle, perhaps some day on a trip to Berkeley Square in London, or even in the Library Square in Pine Bow, when I was distracted by a couple in front of us, who, after the guy kissed the girl, began to make out. It was only their faces, but the visual distorted my image of Annabelle and I together, and it took me a moment to recover and return to the music. The guy had his hair in a mohawk, and the girl wore a pair of pigtails that were positioned in a way that both made it difficult to see. They paused for a while after the applause for Nightingale, but the girl rested her pigtail head on her boyfriend's shoulder, and he nestled his head with its mohawk next to hers. The effect was both annoying and upsetting. Annoying, as I could not gaze at Annabelle and the musicians playing their love songs. Upsetting, because I was sad that Annabelle and I were not doing what Pigtail and Mohawk were doing. There's a lot more I have to say about Pigtail and Mohawk, but right now we have to take a short break, but we'll discuss them more when we come back. You are listening to Greenwood and Company on KCTS. Here it is, Arizona. Pinkerton Motors is having its annual President's Day sale. 3 days only. We're overstocked with cars, trucks, SUVs, and hybrids. If you're looking for a used car, we've got super affordable options, like a 1950 Studebaker Coupe on the back lot. Its wheels are missing and the engine's seized up, but it's yours for just $1,200. Or take a 1973 Ford LTD. The steering wheel's not secured and the transmission won't stay together, but drive it home for just $900, or maybe tow it part of the way. And if you need something that's reliable, buy a Yamaha battery-powered golf cart with seating for up to 6. What it lacks in seat belts, airbags, and reasonable hope for survival in an accident, it brings in value. Just $450 with the engine sold separately. So if you need a cheap vehicle but don't need efficiency to be a factor, come to Pinkerton Motors, San Marcos Street and Ponderosa Highway, just south of Route 66 in the city of Pineville. Warning, Pinkerton Motors may in fact be a front for illegal activities. And welcome back. You are listening to Greenwood and Company on the Cactus, KCTS. And if you're just joining us, this is our Valentine's Day show, or Arizona Statehood Day show if you are proud to be a native Arizonan, or you just are trying to look for something to hide the shame of Singles Awareness Day. Anyhow, we were talking about an infatuated young couple of college kids in the audience at a jazz concert whom we referred to as Mohawk and Pigtail. About halfway through the show, we paused for an intermission where people are given an opportunity to use the restroom, purchase refreshments, or, if they wish, complain about the performance so the performers can't hear them. I emerged from the restroom, then went to purchase an A&W root beer and a Reese's to calm my senses. However, as I was placing my order and the clerk, a volunteer from USIT, the theater technicians fraternity, retrieved my items, I heard a kiss. Then the voice of a youthful young man with a fresh relationship ahead of him. "I'm lucky to have you, Lexi." I turned around once I got my Reese's and root beer, and I saw it was Mohawk and Pigtail, whom I now knew was named Lexi. I gathered Mohawk, whose name I would later learn was Tyson, liked Marvel Comics with his blue t-shirt sporting the Captain America logo, and that Lexi was partial to Pokemon like Colton was, having a Pokeball on the keychain around her belt loop. As I sat on a bench and ate my Reese's, I observed their banter, jealous of two young people in love. "We'll be together forever," Lexi said. "When we die," Tyson replied, "my grave will have Robin in quotes, and your grave will have Starfire in quotes." Now, this struck me as odd, as I've heard of fictional couples being engraved as the epitaphs for long-married literary lovers, but I would expect something along the lines of Heathcliff and Catherine, Romeo and Juliet, or, if they're from the South, Scarlett O'Hara and Rhett Butler, and it surprised me that someone who had such a deep passion for Teen Titans would even be thinking of his own mortality. Tyson and Lexi seemed like the perfect couple, but it was the shock bounce of Lexi's pigtails and her wide-eyed response to her boyfriend's suggestion that clued me things were not as they seemed. "I've been dreaming," Lexi said, since I was 10, that the names Sailor Moon and Tuxedo Mask would be carved on our headstones. Sailor Moon's so girly, Tyson replied. Teen Titans is gender neutral. I don't even care about Teen Titans, Lexi exclaimed. Tyson's eyes went wide, but I did not see the aftermath given the bell rang to signal less than a minute to showtime, so I chugged my root beer and threw the can away. All I know is when I got back, Lexi and Tyson were rigid in their seats, nowhere near touching shoulders. Things went from bad to worse after that, not because of our rigid, troubled lovers, but because Annabelle did the most gorgeous duet with another male sax player. The song was Heather's favorite, What I Did for Love, from a chorus line. I'm sure this gave Colton beautiful reminders of his dreams of that root-beer-eyed barista with the honey-colored hair, but all I could think is, Annabelle will kiss him before the night is out. She'll never be mine. The show finished with a rousing rendition of Nat King Cole's L.O.V.E., triggering a standing ovation. After the house lights rose, Colton and I retrieved our gifts from the counter, and I went to one corner of the lobby to stand and wait for Annabelle, and Colton went to another corner to wait for Heather. But we did not see either one of them come out for about 15 minutes. We were getting anxious, so Colton found a bench where he could sit. Then I joined him, keeping my rose behind my back so Annabelle wouldn't see, and Colton held the bouquet of flowers between his legs. But he didn't realize a thorn on one flower had poked a hole in the plastic, and there was a lot of water dripping. He adjusted the plastic in hopes of patching the leak, but that in fact resulted in a torrent of water pouring out. I've told you many times that Colton is prone to accidents. Well, should I even say this on the radio? Well, he looked like he'd pretty much pissed his pants. So when he realized what happened, he panicked and ran out to the car. Colton was more distraught than I expected when I found him, tie loosened, sleeves rolled up, and his hands clutched the steering wheel as he rested his head against it. His eyes were dry but bloodshot. I was so stoked about this dude. Now I look like I peed myself. What's Heather gonna think? He hit his head against the horn button in the middle of the steering wheel, which startled me. You'll find another time, I replied once I calmed down. When? He asked. When is an opportunity as perfect as this one going to come up? I can't just come back and try this again next week. I'll seem too eager. He again hit his head on the steering wheel, activating the horn. After we got over the spooks of the horn again, he took a deep breath, which calmed him a bit. Sorry about all this, Jimmy. I feel a little bit like Job right now. He sighed again. I mean, I'm pretty sure Heather likes me, but I'm worried if I don't tell her about it, I'll never have a chance. I was lost in pondering what words of encouragement I could say to Colton. The usual words, it's not the end of the world, or you'll get another chance, can often make a bad situation worse, and a silence passed between us. Colton was about to strike the steering wheel in agony with his head again, but just before he reached it, an argument could be heard in the distance. We looked up and saw a guy with a mohawk and a girl in pigtails, engaged in a passionate argument in a metaphorical bubble which the most sophisticated rhetoric and evidence-based reasoning taught at universities had no hope of penetrating. What's up with them? Colton asked. He hadn't been in the lobby when the argument began. Well, I sighed. She wants the names on their graves to be Sailor Moon characters, and he wants them to be Teen Titan characters, I guess. If either Colton or I would have any interest or concern over such a subject, it would be an old soul like me. But Colton was the one who panicked. What if Heather and I can't agree on funerals? He exclaimed. But you're both Episcopalian, I said. That's a good starting place. But what if that's not enough? He replied. There's hymns, scriptures, what kind of dessert, how strong the coffee should be. He could not go on and broke down again, banging his head against the horn. It had snowed in Pine Bow a few days earlier, and though the rising late winter temperatures had melted most of it off, there were still pockets of ice where the sidewalks met the asphalt. The force of Colton's horn was so bad that Lexi and Tyson lost their footing and fell flat on their backs against the snow, freezing their argument in the process. Colton and I had come on a mission, but in a fit of embarrassment, he decided to abort. "We gotta get out of here before someone sees us." He started up the car and drove away. You're listening to Greenwood and Company on KCTS. Values from yesterday, a vision for the future, creating opportunities for the best and brightest. These terms don't really mean much if you look at them closely, but they're lessons that we at the Hexagon Corporation have chosen, at least for this spot, to live by. Whatever we're selling, whatever we're servicing, and whatever we're trying to yank from under your feet in search of a quick buck, we'll always remember yesterday's values and our vision for the future, even if we don't actually apply it toward what we're doing today. Hexagon Corporation is proud to be in your community and proud to pull out of it whenever we need. You'll find a way to need it too. Hexagon Corporation. Yesterday, today, 6 sides. Yeah. You know, I sit on the board for the Hexagon Corporation, and I still don't even know what they manufacture. Anyhow, additional support for Greenwood and Company comes from the Society for Cats with Mathematics Test Anxiety, the Shag Carpet Preservation Fund, and the Used Car Salesman Plaid Sport Coat Foundation. Well, I know what Lexi and Tyson were discussing and having that abysmal argument about what cartoon characters to put on their headstones was rather absurd, but it made me realize this Valentine's Day that very often before we find the magic of romance in our youth or our young adulthood, it is often our cartoon heroes and heroines that preoccupy our minds and, in some case, even capture our hearts. And here's a poem about that which I call Cartoon Crushes. Who were my crushes when I was a boy? When life seemed so simple, the world was my toy. When my small boyish heart fell for many a dame of the small silver screen and of fantasy fame. One love was a mermaid with cherry-red hair. As she swam through Atlantica, gladly I stared at the screen, watching close as she sang how she longed to be up on the surface, her dreams ever strong. Or the 8-year-old girl with 8 points on her head, perhaps she was the one I should long for instead. A strong social conscience she never repressed, with her passion for jazz I was always impressed. Or that cheerleader crime fighter saving the day, with the sidekick and mole rat who helped clear her way, with bright hair like Martian dust, lime-colored eyes, after school every day she could drive me to sighs. Or on Saturday mornings on TV I'd find such a cute little witch with a mischievous mind, but a kind, gentle heart, a concern for her friends, that left sadness when episodes came to an end. They were only cartoons, but with beauty so real, they were pleasing to look at, young hearts they could steal. Though their looks could preoccupy, seeming like lust, in my childish innocence, still I hold trust. The most I could want was a hug or a kiss. That was all a crush meant, and I got enough bliss from watching their stories unfold on TV, than to find them victorious satisfied me. But when looking back now, I am filled with despair. Though the art of their beauty one cannot compare, I find myself grieving for childhood gone by, when the world was my oyster, my joy never died. Though the real world's girls hold such beauty divine, they're not heroes or villains, they're hard to define. In my life never have I had love at first sight. My heart often has crashed when girls sent it in flight. I know not when as Phoebus my role will be cast, though I've had many heartbreaks occur in the past. In the future some lady love one day I'll find, one with whom all my needs, wants, and values align. But until this kind girl sets my heart all aglow, I can feel this affection through old cartoon shows. What will capture my heart, what will set it on fire, for these girls are the baseline of what I desire. That brings an end to this week's Greenwood and Company. Our show was created and hosted by yours truly and was written by him along with James Salison and Minnesota Martinez. The engineer is Ivan Crosby. Jonas Andrews answers the phones even though we don't take calls on this program. The theme was composed by Martin Landstrom, and our costumes are provided by Grandma's Garage Thrift Shop. All the characters, settings, and situations depicted in this program, along with all advertised products, are entirely fictional, and any similarities to products, events, or persons, living or dead, is entirely coincidental. Also, KCTS is not an actual radio station. Be sure to visit our website at JamisonGreenwoodPodcast.com to learn more about Greenwood & Company, and make sure to follow us on the podcast platform of your choice and share with your friends on social media. Just a reminder to please be careful if you are going out on the 101, the 17, or Route 66 tonight. I'm Jamison Greenwood, and until we meet again, stay healthy, stay safe, and stay young at heart. Good night. This is KCTS FM Phoenix. Stay tuned for Lacking in Substance.